We're on.
We are on live
Okay.
recording
All right, so-
5:31.
Welcome everyone to the meeting of Wednesday, April 6th, 2025. And at, is it 5:31? Is that
Yes,
the right time? Yes, thank you, thank you. We'll do a roll call vote to make certain we have three so that we can substantiate there's a quorum. Josh Fay.
Josh Fay, the president.
Okay.
Kate Ryan here.
No Moracek. So we have a quorum of three. And I think you were able to, maybe if you all have seen my note that Joe is going to be resigning, just too much going on at work. And I can't believe he's been able to drive from Concord to Woonsocket, Rhode Island every day, almost every day.
I thought of that exhausting.
Anyway, I want to spend just a little bit of time, and maybe we can do it right now. So since there are only three of us, and I have not been notified that there's anybody that's so far expressed any interest, even though I know that Andrea, the admin assistant to the select board, knows that we need somebody, and now we'll need two individuals. That I think if we have if we know now, that perhaps over the next couple of months that, you know, we have a conflict, that we try to ensure that we have a discussion. For instance, I know in June that I would have a conflict with the second Wednesday. So that doesn't mean we don't have a meeting in June, it just means.
Well, it does if there's only the three of you
Well,
because.
that's my point is
Yeah.
that we have to talk about it another day. But there may be, obviously, for you, Kate, and you, Josh, you may know that you've got some other obligation coming up, and if I'm the only one, then we can wait till perhaps next meeting to determine what are some good alternative dates in June. Because we're gonna need these sessions simply because of the employee handbook project and the need for the board to be involved with reviewing, approving, and so forth. So it's important that we have these meetings, and it may not be on the regular day, which in June it could be what you know, but we'll talk about the date. Keep that in mind that we're gonna have to come up with another date in June.
We're actually discussing, earlier when I met with Kimberly and Aaron, we've been going back and forth that we might actually need two meetings in June, depending on where the handbook lands. Also coupled with the fact that we have to, well, I'm hoping to have the new, pay policy. I started drafting it and then it got set aside and I need to pick it back up again, but, we need to get that in place for fiscal 26, which will essentially solidify the merit plan program. It'll be very brief this year because it, you know, for base pay, it's just gonna be up, you're gonna move your step and then, you know, merit will be calculated again, most likely on the current year salary. So I'm actually gonna try to have that ready for the May meeting. We'll just have to take the vote that it's, because town meeting is late this year, we'll just have to do it and take the vote that, you know, assuming town meeting approval of, you know, all the classification. Bill presented the other day, by the way, he did great at the public hearing, that, you know, that will go into effect. So, because usually we have town meeting and then we vote this in June, but everything's the month off this year. So it's like having it the first week of June, it's like we have 2 weeks to get everything done and then people are taking off or whatever, so.
Okay, we're gonna go to, in fact, we do have the one set of minutes from the month of
Gold
February.
star for Kate.
It took me 2 months to do it, that's fine.
That's really a star.
It's, you know, I have to say, that for me, if it wasn't for the video,
Yeah.
it would be a huge task. But anyway, so any comments, any questions regarding the February 12th minutes?
It looks good to me on quick review.
Yeah, me too. So,
There's a few typos, but I can go.
yeah, we're.
Yeah. It's like to figure out them.
that-
You can just vote them as amended,
Yeah.
with the typos.
And those, you know, you just blame on AI. I mean,
Yeah, me. AI.
okay, so we're gonna go to, we need a vote then a motion to approve the February 12th minutes.
I move we approve this February 12th minutes. That's good.
And
Second.
So all in favor, Josh,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Bill, yes, okay, approved. We then, and tonight's, clerking will be done by Mr. Fay, who's busy at, he'll have this done
Thank you.
before we're through, right?
Yeah, formatted beautifully.
So we're gonna move on to the assistant town manager, the item number 3 on tonight's agenda.
Yes, so the usual report, is in the packet. It's still been pretty busy, you know, with hires and whatnot. And of course, we're in the full swing of our summer hires, which has kept, staff busy. More importantly, I want to just announce, some more changes with the HR department. So Magnolia, who you all know and have talked with, she is still staying with the town, but she's accepted the role of that new human services generalist position that you all approved at last month's board meeting. We did actually have a total of 3 internal candidates for that role, but Magnolia rose to the top. So she started that just after the meeting, I believe, so probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. And then we're not going to be filling her administrative assistant role downstairs. And if you've been following the budget stuff, that was presented a couple of times, but last night was the public hearing for that. So that's the FTE cut in human resources is the admin. We've talked it through and there was so much higher level stuff that the admin was doing that, you know, for invoices and things like that, we can all just get that processed. And it was better to funnel the funds in the position opening to a higher level position. So, so it'll be a little different, but we'll roll with it. I told you, Sean, last time that Shauna had left to take a position in the retirement office. And then after our last meeting, Marie McCann, our other generalist, indicated that she's going to be retiring on April 30th. So, could be in a panic, but we're not, because we actually have somebody fantastic who's starting on Tuesday for one of the generalist openings. So, it was somebody that had been on our radar from a prior search, and we brought them back in and decided that, yeah, this would be good. So, which is good, because currently the ad we have running hasn't had any that have really risen to the top just yet, but we are getting a lot of applications in. So we are gonna just be kind of seeing how things go with the new person coming on board and shifting processes and things like that. And then decide if we're gonna proceed with hiring the second journalist, which we are budgeted for, but we're all just kind of taking an extra look at everything as we have vacant positions, given everything that's come out with the budget. So that's our exciting HR news.
So when you say budgeted, are you talking about the 2026
Yes,
budget?
yes, so the 2026 budget, we have my role, which is actually, that's another one of the reductions, they're just shifting around where my salary is paid from, so I'm gonna be paid 75% from the HR budget and 25% from human services. So that's showing a reduction there, because I'm also the director of human services, although I never use that title. And then we have 2 full-time generalists budgeted, and we have Aaron's position of the assistant HR director budgeted, and then we have our full-time benefits manager. So, but going into the year for live bodies in the seats, we have myself, Aaron, Melissa in benefits, this new generalist. So we'll still have one more vacant generalist position, but you know, with Munis on the horizon for July 1st and the automation and everything else that will be coming with that, we just want to kind of ease in and see where things go. And you know, I would hate to hire somebody that may or may not ultimately end up being needed in the long run, depending on how much we automate. We've got a lot of different projects and things going on that are gonna make life a lot easier all around and more efficient. So stay tuned.
Since you mentioned Munis, why don't we, is just any update in terms of issues or concerns or?
Just the looming deadline, but we are all very much pushing forward for July 1st. It's going to happen. Payroll has been running parallels now to ADP for at least 2 months, I think. And I'm hearing rumblings that there's been some training happening with the payroll preparers, or if not, it's coming soon.
There is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they might not have made it over to your building yet, but
Couple people, but not.
okay. Cause I know they were starting with the most complicated ones, like police, fire, public
Yeah.
works, those are always the most complicated payrolls in every town I've ever worked in. And you know, just from my experience, when they get to the not so complicated departments, it's very easy, cause things are just preloaded in there, you just have to enter exceptions, so. That's exciting, and we've been working on getting personal action, tracking built, employee accruals, that's been a big undertaking, we're gathering up the paper ARC forms, which is absent records cards, because we're gonna have to get all those balances to a point where everybody's like, okay, this is your balance, and that will get loaded into the system, and everybody's set up with their accrual rate within the system, and it's actually kind of cool, you can log in there now and see the employee information and things being populated, benefits are loaded in there. So yeah, it's coming along, and we're committed to a July 1st start. Payroll feels that it can definitely happen, and we'll be right alongside them, so.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other points or questions about the munis? As we were, okay, so we're gonna move on to the fourth item, which is the classification actions.
Oh, that's me.
That is you.
That is
I think number 5 is you too, so plan ahead.
Oh,
I thought it was 5 first for some reason in my head. So we have 3 job descriptions here on the agenda tonight, none of which need approval. We're just making some changes, so we wanted you to be aware. First of which is the IT operations manager, which is only the change from chief technology officer to chief information officer, as that role is filled with the chief information officer instead of the technology officer now. That's the only change for that position. Scroll. Oh, and the next one is our program analyst for public works. And so this is an existing classification, the public works analyst. What we're doing with this job description is making it more specific to support the engineering division. So there's it looks like a lot of red changes on here, but really what it is aimed to do is make it specific to supporting that engineering team. And then lastly is the administrative specialist for public works. Again, just one small change. You'll see in red the assisting with customer service activities and some billing activity as well. And there are people in this role right now, and I confirm that this is not a change. It's a change that accurately reflects the current functions of their role. And that's it for job descriptions.
So my question, Erin, is that, as I understand, you are the person who pretty much, maybe leads the effort to determine what the right grade is.
Yes,
Okay, so that then you present to Jess
Mhm.
for her concurrence or not.
Mhm.
And then if there is a change, then that comes to the personnel board. Right, okay.
I think that, like, for instance, the admin specialist for public works, the need for the change to reflect current responsibilities, like get to your attention. Did the department ask for that? Or is there an audit to what's
can
part of
I,
the role?
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of both,
Yeah.
but go ahead, Erin.
well, I was gonna say there's someone retiring that's in this role. And so we were just looking at the job description in that sense.
All right, I was just curious.
Yeah, it was a change that was brought to our attention from the department head.
When you do the examination, is there any document or form that you actually have in front of you that says, I've looked at various components and elements?
Yes,
So there is okay.
Yeah, it's the point factor system, then we have a job analysis questionnaire, so there's, you know, the
Okay,
list.
so
of
there is
categories.
documentation
Yep,
on it.
and that's all that was built and provided to us from the folks at GovHR. It's a
Okay.
proprietary. I want to say software, but it's not a software, but it's proprietary product, but basically everybody gets a rating and a score for the different
Right.
categories, and then that cumulative is how you end up being, you know, grade 6, 7, 8, whatever. But these changes were small enough that there was no result in any change in pay grade, which is why I'm just giving you the.
Now, I can recall from various parts of the personnel study task force that there was a push to actually have a piece of paper that was essentially a document that would support the reason for the action and would be filed along with whatever other documents, probably in the Human Resources Organization. So on one hand, an extra piece of paper seems like, is it really necessary? But at the same time, it does seem like it affords the opportunity for more transparency and to ensure that if in fact a citizen or someone wanted to see what's been done, that there's a documentation to support the decision, so, which I think is good. Anything, Kate, or?
I was just curious about the program analyst, the shift from reporting to the director of public works and to the town engineer. Was this position already supporting engineering and this is really more memorializing what's actually happened versus what was on paper, just?
So the two people we have in this position right now do report to the director, but they are supporting different functions and
Oh,
different
I see.
divisions. So the changes with this one is trying to aim to make it more specific for engineering. Does that answer your question?
Oh, I see. So you have a program analyst, public works, just public works, and then you have one for engineering?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Currently.
Yep.
And again, it's kind of the same methodology
Yeah.
we've applied here in HR, like getting somebody at a higher level. Now that we have that opportunity with the vacancy, that can maybe do a little bit more stuff focused with engineering than just your typical administrative clerical, because again, you know, admin rules have changed so much over the years, they're doing more, so it's like, well, why don't we figure out what makes sense and then be able to recruit, you know, people at the level that we need based on what the demands are.
Good, good. We can move on to the 5th agenda item.
okay, so this was the clean copy of the sexual harassment policy that we had talked about last month, and there was the small change to.
It was like 2 words, if I remember correctly.
I should have highlighted them in here so it would have been really apparent, but we changed. Oh, we had grievance officers in here, that's what it was, and so we took out that language and we just made it specific to Jess and I in here. And then there was another change.
Yeah, I remember making a motion to approve. with
Yeah,
these, like-
pending,
With these like.
pending the changes, if we made the changes, I should
Yeah,
have
it
highlighted
looks
those.
like, I remember one was about first speaking to a union representative.
Yes,
Gotten in there
yes.
like that.
That was the other one.
Correct. yeah,
Thank you. So this is just the clean copy for your reference.
So Josh, anytime that we have a complicated motion, you're the person. You're the
I don't know
actual
that
person.
I don't know that I nailed it.
You were brilliant. But you took, you know,
Listen, Bill, if you can't get the minutes done to capture my complicated motion, you know what I moved.
That's okay. We'll move on.
Yes, that was basically just, you'd want that on there to just review it, there's no vote, because you voted
Yeah,
it.
that's good.
So,
Thank you.
Good, check that one off, that'll be in the handbook.
Okay, so we're then to the tracking employee satisfaction discussion, item number 6.
Yes, you had wanted this on there, Bill, so I'm gonna let you roll.
So the point here was that we're not making any decisions tonight, but we need to figure out what is gonna be, what are the means by which we can capture employee satisfaction. And by virtue of the personal study task force, we know that a very extensive employee survey was used in order to capture specifics situation. And that could be replicated because it's been used before, and it might be nice to, one argument for doing that, I think, is that you have data that you then can start to look at to see, okay, well, this is now and what was before. If you come up with something new, then obviously trying to compare data becomes, I think, much more of a challenge. I'm sure it can be done, but much more of a challenge. But I think we need to, for purposes of satisfying what has been asked of us by the select board, we need to figure out what are we going to perhaps recommend here to be able to capture what is the satisfaction? And I guess, and since Mark is on the, is with us, and I think the conversation went along sometime in July. The personnel board would have time with the select board to be able to report on this particular point. Do I have that right, Mark?
Yes, broadly, that's correct. So this came about because when we were talking about the annual goal setting and the town manager evaluation process, which are things that we're trying to codify onto more of a schedule that's tied to the changeover from one fiscal year to another, we thought that we noted that in past town manager evaluation cycles, select boards have sort of said, you know, we don't have information to evaluate the dimension of personnel management performance on behalf of the town manager. And so it was a suggestion that possibly we could look to the personnel board to help us with that, and as well as helping us understand this other dimension of how the employees as a stakeholder group are feeling about the climate, their jobs, and keeping track of that. So the broad ask was that the personnel board sync up with us annually on that evaluation process and on those metrics, as well as you know, engage in a conversation that would also be oriented towards setting goals for the year. So if we have goals that the select board is setting, we'd like to communicate those with the personnel board so that you'd know what we might be inclined to focus on. And that, by the way, was intended to be a two-way dialogue. So if you think in the course of what you're working with on a month-to-month basis, that there are areas that we should be focusing on or be considering adding to the goal set that the select board is going to put in place in those first 2 months of each year. We'd like to know what those ideas are so that we could incorporate them into that.
All right, thank you. I guess the other follow-on would be, does the select board have its 2026 goals in place?
No. So that what we're setting a target for ourselves, though, to do that within the first, you know, month to 6 weeks of a year. So sometimes the select board has sort of struggled with this, and you know, what ends up happening is we're creating goals for a year that's got 2 months or even 3 months or more under the bridge already, and that didn't seem fair to us. So we're trying to hold ourselves to a more strict schedule and start those discussions early. Of course, you know, just like everything else this year with the delay of town meeting and you know, it's going to be a challenge to do that, but that's, we think if we look at it this time around with an eye towards that, we'll certainly learn how to get there in a normal year.
So that, just to follow on, then that would mean that once the select board has its goals established and set, then the town manager's goals would fall under that.
Yeah.
So that then gets us into probably the 2 months after into the new fiscal year.
Right. So we're hopefully evaluating the previous fiscal year and, you know, updating the goal set. One of our ideas here too is to try to make sure that the goals that we're looking at are, you know, broader and longer, and that the town manager then has the opportunity. And we did see an interesting, the town manager has an opportunity to insert the appropriate tasks and projects and things like that into the objectives for her senior staff and therefore, trying to get a better integration of those.
So,
All
Jim,
within the first couple months of any given year.
so in terms of the planning that so far is for the employee, is there a goal? Is there a date that's been established that for 2026,
For having the employee goal setting.
for 2026?
Yeah, I believe we're aiming to do that. If I remember correctly, it's July. We're gonna start setting those. So we've been encouraging everybody now to sit down, if they haven't already, for like the mid 6 months to evaluate the goals that we set for this current fiscal year that we set in January for June 30th. And then I know at least with, my staff and talking with them, it's kind of like, things that were stretch goals for you this year, you could, if you didn't meet them or like partially met them, you'll know that they'll be like your regular non-stretch goals for next year. And then there'll definitely be some other goals that can still pull from the select board goals, because obviously the select board, as much as they're trying, are not gonna get every single one of their goals accomplished either, but it will still be that concept of having everything trickle down from the board to the town manager, SMT, and then everybody down below. But we definitely want to do that so people have the benefit of, as much of the year as possible to get those goals accomplished and we get a full year's evaluation.
So I'm gonna, go ahead, Mark.
Well, and if I may, as a practical matter, we actually create quite a few of the constraints and opportunities when we're doing the budget building cycle already. So if you think about it, the budget for FY26 is baked and in the can, so to speak, by the end of town meeting. And I, for one, have always thought it was a little strange to, then turn around and say, oh, and here's all these new goals that weren't part of that resource allocation discussion that occurred already. So I'm certainly going to be, and this is where I'm getting out ahead of the discussions that we've actually had at the select board, but I'm going to be pushing for us to be a little bit more realistic and say when we're engaging in that budget setting process and we know what's in the pipeline for FY26, then it makes sense to tie goals to those budget priorities and so forth. So, I mean, just to pull an example out of the air, if we are going to go to town meeting with a $25 million roads program debt authorization and assume that it gets passed, I would like to think that, getting that program up and moving is a big piece of the public works and engineering goals for the year, because that's a very significant major project, and other things like that. They're kind of obvious. So we should really be able to have that goals conversation pretty early in the cycle, because we're doing it alongside of allocating resources in our budget priorities. I mean, not everything works that way, but certainly some of the key ones are going to.
I want to circle back, Mark, to the employee satisfaction piece here so it seems to me that what we're talking about now is feedback to the select board in, let's say, May, June of 2026.
Yeah.
So there is not this necessity to figure this out in the next couple of meetings.
Absolutely. This would be something that we would probably look to incorporate into the next cycle after, looking forward to FY27, 26 evaluation for 27 kind of thing.
Okay, right. And taking up the time here, but it's important, it seems to me, to have the town manager's input in terms of what type of instrument or what's the goal. And it may be, for example, that what was done with the Personnel Study Task Force, that was a one-off, that was it was done for a different reason, and in no way should we be thinking that that has to be replicated year to year. Or maybe not, but if we had the input from the town manager in terms of, you know, what, from a strategic point of view, what she's looking for. That, I think, would give us a little bit of guidance in terms of what are the options that we have, because in that, anything we're gonna propose this to the town. And the select board. For their review and their input, it seems to me.
Hmm.
You just need to do it in a timely enough fashion so that there is this opportunity for feedback.
No, there's definitely a desire on behalf of the town manager, you know, she expressly said that she's hoping that not only she will be involved at some level, but there'll be input and feedback from the SMT as well, so. I think it makes sense for this group to kind of come up with different options that they think would be a good way for assessing it. And then we just roll them out and see which one, you know, makes sense, and I can present that like at a Monday SMT meeting to everybody and then bring the feedback here. And then once we put it out there, as you know, as long as we get people to respond to it, because it can probably be in some vehicle, like a Survey Monkey or one of those, I mean, it should be pretty quick to gather and sort and cull and do the data, but then the group will wanna figure out. You know, who it makes sense to manage that, I mean.
Right.
I could do it, I don't know if that's appropriate, or we could set it up, you know, Aaron's much better with the tech things than I am, but you know.
We'll have to.
That's
we'll have
all things we have to
right,
think
right,
about.
Right. The other part of this is there may be, and maybe not, but there may be information available at the municipal HR association. That you know, gives one example of, and there may not be, I mean, this may be such.
If not, we can be the pioneers. And say,
Exactly.
"Look what we came up with."
Exactly. Anyway, I think what we'll do, I think we've at least established a baseline tonight.
Yeah.
That in fact, we're gonna need more discussion. And that, maybe next month we can actually talk about establishing a plan. And with what are the elements, you know, such as the coordination with the town managers, such as, what's that, MMA, the.
Mass Municipal
Oh, okay.
Association, MMA.
Oh, MMA, okay. Or maybe there's a benchmark that Kate, you know, or Jess, you know, that from one of the other towns that they've been doing this for a long time. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
It has to be relevant for the town of Concord, obviously. But spending a lot of time reinventing the wheel is something I'm an advocate of not wasting time.
No, I agree, and I think it'll be important to think through, you know, the questions. I think my sense is fewer questions will get more response, but we want those questions to obviously be like targeted questions that are meaningful. If we're like only gonna ask employees 6 questions, like we wanna make sure that they're ones that we're gonna really get something out of. And then I love comment boxes too, because that's why I usually find I get the most information on feedback. It's more than whatever answer they check. It's like, tell me what you're really thinking, so. And then hopefully it can be done in a way that's anonymous as well, because that will, again, increase results.
All right, well, I think we've spent enough time just laying the groundwork for this particular item. And thanks, Mark, for adding your input as well, and we will add to the next month's agenda to commence developing a plan.
Yeah, I appreciate your willingness to take it on. I'm just gonna mention that I'm gonna have to drop out because our Warner's Pond Task Force meeting is coming up too, but I'll stick around for a few more minutes.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to, where are we here? Number 7. Discussion of the presentation that Jess made at the select board meeting of that 3/17?
Yeah, March, a
Okay.
whole month ago. It
Wow.
seems longer, but then also
Yeah,
seems
it
like it was
does.
last week. It's very crazy. Yeah, so Bill's request, I put in the slides that I had put together. What's not on the slides is all my meaty notes that I had that I presented from. I know, I think both of you were on the meeting
were
that
on,
night. So we mostly just wanted to be part of the personnel board packet and again, open up any opportunity for any questions or discussion on this. Unfortunately, it didn't get any airtime in the newspaper, but that's okay. But really just went through to highlight that out of, all of the recommendations from that personnel study task force, we've pretty much completed everything. So it's good just to get the face time with the board and kind of brief them on everything and our work and everything that, we've been able to accomplish and hope to continue accomplishing. So, and I know that there's a plan in place to have personnel board, and or me or us together go to the selectmen, once, at least once a year, just to brief them on everything we're doing, to have there be more of a dialogue, and information sharing back and forth. So I think it went great. Like I said, I was bummed we didn't get any newsprint time. That's okay.
There's plenty of other things happening in the news, I guess, at that moment. You did a nice job, and it was
Thank
nice to see
you.
you do it.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, I was, I'll share that, and support that as well. It was, and I really do think it was a very, very meaningful experience for some of the members of the select board who have not had the same kind of opportunity as Mark or Terry have had because of their involvement as a liaison. So.
I was curious if you'd gotten if there were any employees that may have watched, or if you've gotten any feedback from employees, because I think there's just a lot of information here, and clearly that your staff and the personnel board combined, I should say you did all the work.
They'll
Accomplished
accomplish
a lot,
the
right, in a couple of years, and so I just, it would be nice to highlight that with staff to show that, we've heard you, right, and we're trying to move toward,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there was some employees on the meeting. I'm trying to remember because I was like looking at the Zoom screen and then also trying to present. And then in terms of like feedback, like I haven't gotten any direct feedback about like, oh, this is so great, you guys are accomplishing all this stuff, but I mean, we are still continuing. We're actually, one thing I forgot to mention is we're at open enrollment right now. So we did work with our insurance advisory committee to roll out a new dental and vision plan. So as you recall from that study task force, there's a lot of feedback about the benefits and this and that. Unfortunately, it didn't help with our health insurance increase, but we at least were able to offer them some new plans that have a much better benefit for a better price point. So, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing the results of whatever survey we do put out. And I hope that people do respond, and whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, it's like, I always tell people when they come to my office with an issue or problem, I'm like, you have to just tell us, like, we can't fix things or change things or even make an effort to, or explain why we can't do something unless you come to us. So, but yeah, I mean, I feel like we're getting a decent amount of foot traffic in the building now. Aaron, you sit downstairs, I think you see people coming and going more than I do up here, but I mean, I remember my first months here, like there was not a lot of people coming in the building. So, now people feel like, they can come here, pop by, say hi, steal our candy, pick up some forms, whatever they need to do, so.
Candy.
It's all about
Out
right
right
now.
now.
We've been a little stressed this week.
Okay, thank you, Jess.
My pleasure.
Nice, it was really, it was a good session. So I guess we get to move on to Kimberly and the discussion on the employee handbook progress.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to share with you that the first half of the handbook is out for review, and staff, we have staff personnel who are just combing through the first draft before we are able to present it to you. So while it's a little bit of a bummer that we don't have the first half to talk through tonight, I think we all understand the pressing matters that are before staff this week and in the coming weeks between the 250th and town meeting. The second half is progressing very nicely, and I expect to have it completed on time. And so I'll look forward to being able to bring a proper draft before you shortly.
Kimberly, again, thank you for leading this particular project, and it's critical really for the town and for the employees and for the citizens, really. Is there a spreadsheet or some matrix of what, when you say first half, that
Uh-huh.
you could share with us, not right now, but share with us when this is the first half and this is what's gone out.
Yes, I can give you a bit of an overview. From our discussion last month, I had mentioned that in my mind, the first half, if you will, was kind of the crosswalk of existing policies that we have into the handbook. And it included all of the opening portions that you see in a handbook, like a cover page, the welcome, a little bit about the town's history, how our bylaw intersects with the handbook, and then several, I'll call them chapters or sections. One is on the positive workplace. So setting the stage for our equal employment opportunity and our code of conduct, if you will. And then the next one is on compensation, because we had bits and pieces of compensation in a number of different places. So we're bringing that all together in one common chapter. And then all of our leave policies, which we also have some in PPPs, some in APPs, some were part of the former bylaw. And so we're bringing that all into one particular chapter. And then the employee benefits section, which is commonplace in the employee handbooks across the state of Massachusetts and beyond. And we really, today, our employee benefits information just exists in a web page for our employees. And so we wanted to bring that into the employee handbook as well. So those are the areas that are covered in the first half.
Thank you.
Oh.
Any other questions, comments?
Look forward to seeing it.
Yeah,
It's good, like I've heard a sneak peek of that stuff, and I mean, it's meaty. I mean, I spent probably 2.5 hours just reading through, and of course, I was also making some marks and edits and suggestions. So, you know, the average employee isn't gonna read it start to finish. I mean, we hope they will, but usually people just go to the reference for the sections that, you know, they need to look up or what have you, but and certainly if they do read it all, they're not gonna sit down and read it all in one sitting.
So the date that's been established for the first half review being completed is when?
Well, it's the first half, our goal was to have it to you today, as you know. And so we're kind of beyond the date due to the factors I think we all understand with this weekend, the coming weeks. So I don't know, Jess, if you have a suggestion for a date when we'll be able to bring to the board.
Knowing that you're almost ready to issue the second half for all of us to review.
Internally? Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like we might be able to bring something. May possibly, but maybe June, we're still working through the whole piece with wanting to gather employee feedback, and again, balancing like. We want to be consistent, right? We've brought every policy to the board, we've shared it with them ahead of time, saying if you have questions, let us know. If you want to come to the meeting, let you know the board wants to hear from you. So we want to keep in that spirit of being open and transparent and doing the same thing with the handbook, but we also don't want to get super behind, like, we're trying to play that out, because if we send it to people and there is somebody that really does want to comb through and read every single page and give questions, comments, feedback. That said, with the policies we've brought forth, I mean, granted, they've all been pretty positive, I think, with, you know, increasing benefits and things like that, other than a couple of like, hey, this is great, or just some clarifying questions, we haven't gotten a ton of feedback, but I think it just says a lot to the employees that we want to get that feedback, like we're giving them the opportunity, right? So I think if we can work through that timing, and then, I mean, worst case, if it has to be like mid-July that it finally gets issued, you know, we were aiming for July 1st, and we still want it to be July 1st, but again, at the end of the day, we want the rollout to be complete and do it once, do it right, so.
But what we do have, that was mentioned last month, was that we have the legal review that's gonna take 3 weeks. So,
Yes, so
so
that
I
right
mean,
now.
that's still a necessity,
Yeah.
obviously. And the legal review won't start until the personnel board has approved.
I mean, we could look at that both ways. I mean, and Kimberly, I don't know if you have any thoughts, but I mean, we could bring you what we think is kind of the finalized, ready to go for legal review version, if you want to see it at that level, or if you'd rather just be able to review and digest it, knowing that it's gone through our review. When I say our review, it's, you know, Kimberly's drafting it, Aaron and Carrie and I are all reviewing, like, we're all reviewing it. And it's funny, you know, 10 sets of eyes on one thing, we all find different stuff, right? Or if you'd rather just see kind of like this is the minted ready, legals bless this, do you want to review it and have questions, comments? And you can always go back and change something, even if legals reviewed it, just say, can you focus on this section? You know, the personnel board had a question, or if you reviewed before that, and so it really kind of is what the board wants to do in terms of when they want to see it. And then, of course, if the board sees it, then the employees are seeing it at the same time as well. So keep in mind that when it comes to the board, it's, you know, the pre-legal or post-legal version is also what the employees would be seeing and getting the opportunity to weigh in on.
I would not recommend circulating to employees
I agree,
before legal review.
I agree.
So,
So
Agreed.
let's take apart what about us? When should,
I mean, I think for our purposes, frankly, post-legal review is the right time,
okay,
right? I mean,
okay, I mean, that's,
that way it's like, you know, there's likely to be a couple of issues that legal review may catch, and it's probably better to look at the policy after those have been dealt with. And rather than duplicating efforts maybe and saying,
Right.
here's an issue that may also be, you know, arise in legal review.
Yeah, and it can always go back, like, I wanna make sure the board knows if we bring it after legal review, it's not like, oh, well, this is already done, cause legal looked at it, like, seriously, if there's something that. You know, everybody, you can charge 5 different lawyers and they'll all find 5 different things you might wanna change, you know. So as long as, I mean, we can bring it post review as long as you guys, you know.
I just think if there's a need for the board and employees to sort of get it at the same time, and to me, it does not make sense to let the employees see a draft that hasn't gone through legal review.
Yeah.
Makes more sense.
I agree with that.
yeah.
Kimberly, did you have thoughts on that from your perspective as the author?
I appreciate the discussion on that, and I understand completely, Josh, your recommendation. And so long as that's good with the board, I think that's optimal. One of the issues that, you know, has been, as Jess was discussing, that's been very important and valuable, I think, in coming into this role is making sure that we're transparent and that we're, you know, nobody's hiding the ball. I think I've said before in these meetings. And so we want to make sure that the board understands that you're not a rubber stamp. We're not going to give you something that's complete and you can't have input or impact into. Even if it's been through legal review, as Jess said, you're welcome to make recommendations or suggestions, alterations.
Okay, any other items to cover on this? Okay, I think, Kimberly, again, thank you. We're gonna move on to the number 9, which is the review and adoption of the personnel board charge.
Yes, so back on, I believe it was March 17th, the same night I gave my update, the select board gave their final edits, had their final discussion. So basically, the draft that's in your packet, you'll see there's the under personnel board coordination reporting, there was that, I believe was, and he's already bumped up, but that was the comments and feedback from Mark that he had put in, which I think you've seen before. And then there was just some minor edits and grammatical that came from one of the other board members. And then under the personnel board goals and initiatives, you'll see there's the red line there for just to add, identify any challenges, suggest recommended fixes or improvements, and provide ideas and best practices for improving morale, which ties into the employee survey piece we just recently talked about here. So there's also the clean copy in here, but at this point, the board is good with it, and personnel board, if they so desire, can now vote to formally adopt their new charge, and then we can check this one off the list of things this board has plowed through.
Any, before I entertain a motion, any thoughts or comments? The one thing that I think would be important, and maybe it's in a footer, but once we vote to approve this, I think there needs to be a date added in the footer that says what we did when.
Yeah, we will make sure that gets in there.
Because one of the most frustrating things that not only do footers have a purpose for keeping track of pages, numbers, but also for providing some helpful information sometimes.
And may it never go 30 years again without an update, or however long it's been.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the revised personnel board charge draft as outlined in our packet.
All right, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Kate,
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
And Bill, yes. Okay. That's,
Making things happen.
over the years.
2 years, right? It's been at least 2
When
years.
she said plowed through it, I was like, no.
I feel like it went fast, and I applauded through it.
Before, I mean, that covers our agenda, items. I made a couple notes to myself, that I'd like to just sort of share. The plan for setting goals, again, for the employees for 2026. We're talking about the end of July, is that the?
Yeah, I
goal?
believe July is the month, and I'm looking for Kimberly's slides. Kimberly, you don't remember off the top of your head, do you?
Forgive me, I don't, but I can probably pull it up pretty quickly if you'll bear with me.
Well,
Timeline.
Yeah, I know you sent me the slides, because that's on my list of things I want to get out to, because people are asking.
I just think we as the personnel board should know.
Oh, absolutely,
Sense as to
absolutely.
the timing of all this.
Yeah, because, right after the year closes, people will do their final, the actual sit down for the performance review for this year and do the final evaluation on the goals. Which will then determine, like, I don't foresee, based on my knowledge, I don't foresee anybody that won't be moving the step. There's nobody on our radar that's got awful, under satisfactory performance and won't move the step, and then it will just be calculating based on each individual person's goals, what their cash merit will be, and then we'll just be putting those spreadsheets together. And I think we have until September 1st
Yeah,
to issue.
Yeah, our timeline from the supervisor training is what I pulled up to look at. And we said that performance evaluation for the step increase has to be in by May 31st. That's so that we could get it in the first payroll in July, effective July 1st. And then the merit pay evaluation for merit has to be done by July 31st. That's the goal achievement, so that we can get the merit pay into the first payroll in September. And unfortunately, I did not include a line here for when goals would be accomplished, but I thought it was interesting, some of what we've talked about internally about goal setting is that because we just went through the budget process, each of the SMT members, put in what they put in to accomplish for the coming year in the budget process. And we've all had our eye toward what next year's goals, when we have a full year in order to accomplish, rather than this half year that we were dealing with this go round. So my sense is that, and Carrie has mentioned multiple times that within the goals, there are several categories, overarching themes, 5 or 6 that the select board has and 5 or 6 that she has. And we really don't expect that those overarching themes are going to change. So efficient governance, in other words, is going to continue to be a goal of both the select board and the town manager and so forth. And so I think the goal setting for the second round will be fairly efficient. And just, I don't think the board has seen the format, the system that we're using to track. That might be interesting.
Oh, yeah, I could
but-
ask them all, to maybe do a demo next month.
Yeah.
Because there's no way we're gonna get her here tonight with all things 250.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's really-
the IT, the CIO and or CTO and the records administrator, who sits in 55 Church with the HR team, devised, based on a lot of discussion, devised a tracking system for us to input the goals for this season, because I think when we initially embarked upon this, I said we're going to be a little clumsy this first 6 months, but we're working on drafting a system that'll help us track this. And so we do have that system in place now. All the goals are loaded. And during the month of April, each SMT member is going in and updating for each goal for each employee. Are they 25% or 0%, 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100% complete? And last Sunday, I did go in and look, and a number of people had already gone in and updated a significant portion of those goals. And it's really gratifying to see that people are ringing the bell on some of the critical items and critical backlog of things that they wanted to work on for this 6 months. And so what will eventually happen when everything is updated during the month of April is the group will be able to pull reports for Carrie so that she can give an update for select board goal number 1. What is the percentage of achievement for those employees who were assigned a linkage to select board goal number 1? And the same for each of the goals for both the select board and the town manager. So she'll be able to give reports to the select board. We would be able to share information with you about how it's going and about long-term, what we foresee or what we project might be merit payouts for the year or for the half year. So it would be great if you all had the opportunity to see that in action, because what that means is now for next year's goal achievement for FY26, instead of doing back and forth with Excel spreadsheets like we did in this clumsy, first go round, the SMT members will be able to go in and actually load their own goals. So it'll be much faster, much more efficient.
So, and this, I may have missed this for sure, but the feedback, the plan, what is the plan for the feedback to an employee? Because and is it intended that the employee sign something and is that something that you've already prepared or?
Yep, we have template review forms that actually have the goal sheet it's like an appendix to it, so the two go together, so everybody will sit down, go through the goals. Do the performance review, they'll sign off on it, have the opportunity to give any feedback they want to, verbal or written, to go with the file. And then they'll be informed of their merit amounts, well, that they got their step and that they'll get their merit amount. Last year we did letters that, I think Magnolia did them last year. That were done in a merge format, so everybody got a letter, to them saying, this is what your new step is, this is what your merit cash bonus will be, and all that, and that of course went into their files.
Is there a written procedure for an employee who does not agree with the evaluation? Written procedure as to what are the steps?
Yeah, I don't think we actually have one as part of even the new handbook. I've always said if you don't agree with your review, that you need to still sign acknowledging that you received it, and then you're welcome to submit written feedback that will be attached to the review and included in your file. And I usually give them, 2 weeks or whatever to get us that feedback.
But is that written down that you just said?
No, but I can certainly draft something.
Well,
up.
I'm encouraging that this is
Yeah,
a loose end, so to speak, that you just can, if you don't feel that you've been fairly evaluated, and it has an implication on how much money you're gonna get.
absolutely.
I think the more we can document what the procedure is, and you can hand it to an employee. It's just, it's a much more, I think, professional way to handle.
Or if it could even be as simple as a disclaimer at the bottom of the form itself, that way it's all together in one spot, you know, you have the right to, you know, well, you must sign this acknowledging receipt, you know, you have the right, this is the.
Whatever, you know, whatever you come
Yeah,
up with,
that's not a bad idea, that's
because I
easy
think,
enough to.
I think it deserves at least some thought.
No, good.
Okay, the other thing I just wanted to, I think there might be, it would be important for me, but I don't know, I want to speak for the personnel board, that we have a sense as to how many MCAD actions are pending. We know from, probably was back a few years, there was actually, the personnel board was presented with an issue presented by, you know, named people who came to a meeting and so forth, so none of this is confidential.
Mhm.
But obviously, what the MCAD is doing and not doing is confidential. But I'm just curious, I think it would be, I'd like to know how many MCAD actions are actually the town is being faced with right now.
Right now, there's only one, we had another one that was dismissed. That one had been hanging around for a while, it was dismissed due to lack of probable cause back in December of 24.
Well,
So
that,
we do have just one other one now.
and I'm gonna assume that there aren't any other employee actions that are not related to MCAD. Such as, you know, wrongful termination, or, I mean, those types of proceedings. And in litigation, you don't have to go to MCAD to do that.
No, you,
But anyway, I'm just trying to get a sense. And the last thing is, you know, how much roughly is the town spending on these kind of issues? Because I was at the select board meeting this last Monday night, and, you know, there's the raising of the, Sanborn School, Peabody School, Sanborn. So, you know, it now has asbestos, so it's gonna cost an extra $489,000. I mean, not the exact number, but it's a large number. And, you know, should it be 489,000? You know, you hope that the process within the town in terms of RFPs and review of the monetary, that somebody's on top of that.
absolutely, so with anything that's an MCAD filing, lawsuits, things like that, we notify our property casualty liability insurance provider, and then they typically will assign counsel. So the one MCAD claim we have going on now, we have counsel assigned to us from Maya, who is our liability provider. So we get the benefit of counsel by nature of paying our premiums on those plans. So we're not actually paying our labor counsel or
Okay.
town council. Now, that said, we do often reach out with, you know, random one-off questions. We had an interesting one not too long ago around a unique military leave question that was new for all of us. So like we tap, you know, labor counsel for things like that. But their bills are very itemized. I'm sure we could probably have them. I don't know what the town manager's office even tracks, if they have a spreadsheet started, but there's probably a way we could find out like how much. You know, we spend on labor counsel for things like one-off issues versus, you know, bargaining issues. There's probably a way that could be sorted, but yeah, anything that's
Well, you know,
lawsuit related, we're covered through our
Yeah.
insurance carrier, they provide counsel.
all of these things, you know, there has to be a value and received as opposed to just thinking it's great to have the data. But there has to be a value, I think, to whether, is this information at all helpful in managing the town's business or managing the town's employee workforce? And there's probably not an absolute answer to any of those, but anyway, I think I had those two things, just wanted to talk about. Thank you for responding, and any other comments, questions from anybody?
We should maybe talk through scheduling a little bit, just
Yeah.
because you mentioned it at the start and.
Well, yeah, I mean, for right now, we are set in May.
Yes, May 14th, I think it is. So I will be here, but you'll be in good hands with Aaron.
May 14th, okay.
A few weeks away.
I know, it goes
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
So if we look at June,
yeah, so when are you away, Bill? What are the dates that don't work for you? Clearly.
so I'm
the
not,
11th is
I'm not
wonderful.
gonna be around on the 11th.
Okay.
I'm gonna be in Montreal, and, well, you can all come if you like.
Well, now that we don't have a meeting that day.
Personnel board retreat.
Yeah, I like that. And I don't think I'm gonna necessarily be at a place where Zoom is actually gonna be workable, so if you look at your June calendar, is the 18th of June, the next Wednesday, seem at this point on your calendars to be open?
Works for me.
Okay.
It should work for me too.
Okay, so why don't we, right now, and you can put into the minutes, oh, here in a minute. The June 18th will be our June meeting. Now, I don't know if that conflicts though with the necessity that you have, Kimberly, for. Are we gonna need 2 meetings in June?
We might be okay now that it's pushed the week and now that we're gonna do the legal review first.
Right.
You can always circle back and I can send out the bat signal. I mean, that's the one good thing about our dwindling numbers is I only need to crawl 3 of you instead of 5 of you for a date, but yeah, we might actually.
Make it lucky.
Yeah. And if not, the July meeting is early enough in July that if it has to push.
Okay.
2 more weeks past June 30th / July 1st, that's
Okay.
not the end of the world. From my perspective, that's not the end of the world.
All right, so right now, June 18th is
Yeah.
what will be our
Send
June
out
meeting.
the Updated invite now.
So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
and all in favor. Josh?
yes.
Yes.
And Bill, yes. Thank you all. Thank you, Kimberly, very much for.
It's
Bye,
great to
Sarah.
see you guys. Enjoy your weekend. I can't wait.